Poaching and the illegal trade of wildlife are global phenomena, and of course Africa is one of the continent's most affected. Bird, reptile and primate species are trafficked in Africa, but perhaps the most well-known challenge for the continent is rhino and elephant poaching. CCTV's Clementine Logan takes a closer continent-wide look at just how much poaching is affecting the African elephant.
It's thought one elephant is killed every 15 minutes for its tusks, and it appears time is running out for the world's largest land mammal. Africa's forest elephants are found in the rainforests of Central and Western Africa. Research shows the population has crashed by over 60% since 2002. Even if poaching is curbed, it will take nearly 100 years for the species to recover. Now, the great elephant census paints an equally bleak picture. 30% of Africa's savanna elephants have disappeared in 7 years. The biggest drops were recorded in Angola, Mozambique and Tanzania. There have been some gains in other African countries though. In April, Kenya took a stand. In a bid to show the world that elephants were beyond economic use and are worth more alive, President Uhuru Kenyatta set fire to the country's stockpile of ivory and rhino horn. I was one of many journalists reporting on the event. Take a look. More than 100 tons of ivory and rhino horn up in flames. These pyres represent 6,000 elephants, their tusks reclaimed from illegal poaching over 3 decades. This is the largest ivory burn in history. In keeping with a tradition which started with Kenya's first burn in 1989, President Uhuru Kenyatta has pledged to put ivory beyond economic use. But with a street value of over $150 million, some say the stockpile should have been sold, the money put towards conservation. Kenya says that by destroying the tusks and horn, it's telling the world that Africa's elephants and rhino are worth more alive. Once the flames die down, Kenya and other African countries besieged by poachers face the task of bringing the continent's elephants back from the brink. They'll need to tackle corruption and stem demand. Kenya says it will also reiterate its call for a total ivory ban at September's International Wildlife Trade Conference in South Africa, and that this ban sends a strong and somber message to the world that Kenya's wildlife is not for sale. Clementine Logan, CCTV in Nairobi National Park.
Now, elephants aren't the only animal under threat in Africa, but governments and communities are working together across the continent to raise awareness of poaching and trafficking. In fact, the pangolin is the most trafficked mammal in the world, and an organization in Zimbabwe is doing its best to safeguard them. CCTV's Farai Makutuya has more.
Pangolins are nocturnal, solitary animals, which makes them difficult to spot in the wild.
Unlike the rhino and the elephant, the pangolin is a very, very different animal. And it's not a species that you can fly overhead in an aeroplane and count. It's not an animal that you can be on foot and count.
Increasing demand for their scales means the small mammals are becoming even more difficult to track, complicating the work of groups trying to protect them.
Now, 17 tons of pangolin, that's just scales that were seized. How many pangolins does that make up? Hundreds and thousands of pangolin.
Lisa Haywood has made it her mission to protect pangolins. In 1994, she founded the Tiki Haywood Trust, naming it after her father. It's become the world's foremost authority on pangolin rescue, rehabilitation and release. But Haywood warns that more needs to be done to highlight the plight of an animal that may have an armored skin, but still needs protection. Farai Makutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Well, let's get you some perspective now on poaching and the illegal trade of wildlife. I'm joined here now in Nairobi studios by Mr. Kitili Mbathi, the Director General of Kenya Wildlife Services. Mr. Mbathi, of course, we know that South Africa recently hosted the CITES conference. What do you think are the key outcomes that came from those meetings when it comes to the global fight against poaching and wildlife trafficking?
I think the two key points that came out of it is there is a continuing ban on the international trade in ivory and rhino horn. Some countries, especially in southern Africa, were trying to get the ban lifted, but at least the ban will stay in place until the next CITES convention.
And of course, the other aspect that many people were looking forward to seeing was a sense of transnational cooperation, and as far as raising awareness is concerned when it comes to poaching. Did we see enough of that, or is that at least progressing?
I think that is progressing. I think the awareness is getting heightened. I think in a lot of the consumer countries, it's becoming less cool to have ivory ornaments or indeed to indulge in products that are made with rhino horn.
Now, indeed, Kenya's ivory burn that we saw earlier this year drew a lot of attention. Are you still confident that it was the right decision in as far as the options were concerned? Do we burn? Do we sell? Are you still confident in that this made the right statement?
Absolutely, because what His Excellency was demonstrating was that Kenya doesn't believe that there's any intrinsic value in ivory. The only value is on an elephant. So we don't believe there's any value in the ivory which is not on the elephant. So the message was made loud and clear, and we still believe in it.
And do you think it's had an impact in terms of market demand for ivory, though?
We haven't seen an appreciable drop in market demand. However, it has certainly increased the awareness internationally of the need to avoid or clamp down on illegal wildlife trade.
Indeed, important steps. Thank you very much, Mr. Mbathi, the Director General of Kenya Wildlife Services, joining us here in our Nairobi studios.